joining us this morning. Really happy to have everyone here and joining us on YouTube. I wanted to take this opportunity to introduce my friend, Miss Kristen Christy. Thank you again for joining us. So over the past 5 years that I've known Kristen, I've seen her present numerous times and speak about some of her personal challenges. And it's always been a very powerful message that I've helped, get me through some of my dark times and helped me in my own resiliency. And so I really look forward to the opportunity. We will have an opportunity for some questions. You'll see a link provided so you can submit questions from YouTube or here within the audience. And then she'll also, at the end, provide some time that you can come up and speak to her personally if you'd like. So without further ado, Ms. Kristen Christy.
Good morning. So before we get started, that's not the one. There we go. We have an inline text number for those of you who are here virtually who would like to ask some questions during the presentation. Please feel free. We are so thankful to have you all here. The beauty of technology to have you join us today. And thank you for the introduction. Thanks for the invitation to be here. And I've had a chance to meet some of you this morning. Thank you for being here. I heard a saying, life is a tough teacher. We get the test first and then we learn the lesson. You think about that, right? We get the test first and then we learn the lesson. It's so different than what we do going through school or PME or certification classes. But when I heard that saying by Vernon Law, the athlete, it was an aha moment for me as I reflected back on life. See, I grew up in the Air Force. I'm blue through and through. I was so fortunate to be a European brat and a Far Eastern brat and living all over the U.S. And we loved the lifestyle. We moved every 2 years, and that was difficult. But we had a plan. We would get our household goods, do the inventory, ask whose stuff is this, right? Or make the inventory of all the things that were broken. We actually lost all of our household goods twice in all of our moves. In fact, when my dad met my mom, he was stationed in Italy. She was an American school teacher in Germany. And they got married, and she was unpacking her things in Italy, and she was just so excited about these crystal champagne glasses that her parents had gotten when they were missionaries in Japan. My dad proceeded to pick one up and drop it, and it shattered all over the floor. I would have thought that she would have called a divorce attorney right away. But the point of that was he said, honey, welcome to the Air Force. It's just things. The most important part of being a part of the Air Force is the community and the people that you meet. They stayed married for 51 years till my mom passed away. But when I heard that story, it really resonated with me, and I understood better that the two mantras that my brother and I grew up with, one was, if you don't ask, the answer is always no. If you ask, you have a chance. If you have a chance, take it. And if it changes your life or someone else's life, let it. The other one was, get embedded in your community. And I thought, well, how wonderful. We're going to get to see great places, and it was more about the people in that community. So when I say the word community, what's your definition of community? Because I think each and every one of us have something different as a definition of community. It could be the parents at your kid's school and your kid's classroom, or your neighborhood, your unit that you're involved with. Could be your Texas Hold'em group that you meet with once a month, even virtually. Right now, I think COVID has taught us that we still have a sense of community even if it's through Zoom and things like that. And our community came alongside of us because we were embedded. My brother and I, after we did the inventory and we unpacked the boxes, not necessarily had everything put away, my brother and I would sit in the back seat of the car with the Rand McNally map, way before GPS. And we would get in the car and we would tell my parents when to turn right or when to turn left. And we would get lost in our community, whether it was Okinawa, Japan, which is kind of hard to get lost in Okinawa, Japan, or Omaha, Nebraska, Carlisle, Pennsylvania, Colorado Springs, San Vito, Italy, or San Antonio, Texas. We always got lost in our cities. And we met the most fascinating people. And we were able to be ambassadors for the Air Force. In 1983, so you don't have to do the math, I was 15, I'm 39 now, plus shipping and handling. That's my story and I'm sticking to it. But in 1983, I was 15 and we had just moved to Wiesbaden, Germany. I was very dedicated. I was a world-class athlete at the age of 15. I had played she was 98th in the world of tennis and beat her. She ended up becoming the #1 women's tennis player for 7 straight years and changed the face of tennis. And then I won the golf championship for all the American high schools in Germany. And I beat the #1 boy by 5 strokes. I was more proud of that than anything. My competitiveness traveled with me. The last week in October, 9 days before my 16th birthday, I experienced a massive stroke. I was born with a malformed vein in the very center of my head. And that explained the headaches I had been having for 2 months after we moved to Germany. And of course, my parents took me to the pediatrician. And at that time, overseas, they just thought it was my schedule because I would wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning, go to tennis practice, go to my junior year in high school, and then go to golf practice afterwards. But that was my choice. I'm sure my parents would have rather to stay in bed at 4 o'clock in the morning, but they were very supportive. I was completely paralyzed on my right side, and the prognosis was if I lived, I would never walk again. So you can see I don't take no for an answer. I'm not very graceful necessarily, but it was my community that came alongside. I say life is a tough teacher, but in life, we live on an emotional battlefield. And there's no room for strangers, and there's no room for silence. We don't know what our battle buddy or our wingman is dealing with at any one time in life. So showing some empathy, even though my friends didn't understand a stroke, they were used to their grandparents maybe having a stroke, someone older. But in order to learn to walk again after having surgery and being aerovac to San Antonio for a 9-hour brain surgery, I had to learn to crawl. I didn't go to school. I had a homebound teacher. She was part of my community. My physical therapist was part of my community. My speech therapist was too darn good, my kids say. She was part of my community. But my friends from high school would come over and we would have crawling races because the stroke did not get rid of my competitiveness and my determination. But I went through what they call post-stroke depression. I remember driving in the back seat on the Autobahn, and I told my parents I wanted to open up the car door and jump out. See, my brain worked, my body didn't. And that was hard for a then 16-year-old to deal with. I'm glad I said something, because then another person in my community came alongside, and that was my therapist, to help me understand that my identity was not in what I did. I was an athlete. My identity was not, my identity was I'm a hard worker, I'm self-determined, I'm competitive. That's okay to have that as part of your identity. And to move and transition into using that hard work and that self-discipline and that competitiveness to learn to walk again, to write with my left hand now, and to still be a productive citizen in my community. And remember, when I say community, because I say it a lot, think about your community, what that means to you. So my scholarships were taken away, rightly so. But I got a full scholarship because I was handicapped to the University of Texas in Austin. So after I learned to walk again, I did graduate from high school. The first time I walked without a cane or a walker was graduation day. Still gives me goosebumps. It was just a few years ago. But I remember that day so vividly. And off to the University of Texas I went. 53,000 students in 1985. Largest university population-wise at the time. And I needed to find my community. But I had lived up on installations my whole life. So my community was at the ROTC building. I wasn't able to raise my right hand to take the oath of service, so I raised my left hand and said, I will volunteer. I volunteered with ROTC with Silver Wings. It was Angel Flight back then. And then we volunteered in Austin in our community there. And I got involved with the Air Force Association. That was another part of my community. So it was no surprise to anyone when I went to a party and the only person in the room I did not know, it kind of bugged me that I didn't know him because I'm an uber extrovert. I went right up to him and I said, hi, I'm Kristen Anderson. He said, hi, I'm Dawn Christy. We can never get married. Going, what kind of pickup line is that? He said, you would be Kristen Christy. I don't take no for an answer, ladies and gentlemen. 5 months later, I had the ring on my finger. Dawn was commissioned in the Air Force. You can see our Texas pride on our family picture. That was the year that the Longhorns won the championship. After commissioning, we got married, and off to Grand Forks, North Dakota we went. Talk about a community. Edwards reminds me a lot of Grand Forks. Maybe not the extreme winters, but we had a long stretch to go from base to town. Unlike Edwards, we had billboards on that long stretch that we memorized. But that long stretch, and after we had our oldest son, Ryan, in Grand Forks, that stretch was our gratitude highway. We would recite gratitudes. We would say what we were grateful for. It was a 17-mile drive. I encourage you all here at Edwards, use that time as your gratitude highway. Turn off the radio if you can, or just say it out loud. But use that time to be grateful, and hopefully be grateful for your community, whatever that looks like. But Grand Forks, we got embedded in the community. We lived on base. We left our garage doors open during the summer. We left our doors unlocked. People could come in. Our basements all flooded one time. And, of course, Don was a missileer, so it flooded when he was on alert. But things happen, right? In the military, things happen when your military member is TDY or gone. Those TDY gremlins. And I was 8 months pregnant when our basement flooded, so my community came alongside. And we helped each other. We co-opted. We would watch each other's kids to go to the gym. But we got embedded in that community. And it was wonderful. And then after 4 years, we got an assignment to Grand Forks, North Dakota. Or to Colorado Springs from Grand Forks, North Dakota. And we were so excited. When we found out we were going, people would say, you will love Colorado Springs. The economy is based on God and war, with all the faith-based nonprofits and 5 military bases. I prefer peacekeeping. Words matter. This is silver, not gray. And we got embedded in our community, and our community looked different this time because it was the first time that we lived off base. I had lived on installations my entire life growing up. And so we felt like we were ambassadors for the military. And we got to know people who did not understand the military way of life. And our sphere of influence in our community just grew from that. And then we developed a new community because Don decided to go into the Air Force Reserve. I got a pink ID card, my favorite color, but I got to keep an ID card. That was important to me. So we got to know the reserve community more and understanding that more. And in fact, we stood in the gap. As a young military spouse, I got my pink ID card and I got a green punch card. We could go to the commissary 12 times a year. That was it. So I became an advocate. I was on the team that went up and lobbied to get unlimited commissary services for the reserve. And the next year, we got a 24 punch card. That year, we went back up and we said, thank you very much. However, remember, if you don't ask, the answer is always no. If you ask, you have a chance. If you have a chance, take it. If it changes someone's life, let it. Don became a squadron commander in the reserve. That was one reason why he transitioned to the reserve. He didn't feel like his active duty career was going the way he was hoping. He wanted to be a squadron commander. And he became the squadron commander of 19 SOPs at Schriever Air Force Base, the largest reserve unit in all of Air Force Reserve Command. In 2003, I will never forget, I had always heard he was a great leader, and people really enjoyed working with him. He came home and he said, I have been tasked with getting volunteers for deployment in Baghdad in 2004. And I don't feel right about asking for volunteers unless my name is at the top of the list. Supervisors and managers say go. True leaders say let's go. They are willing to pull up their sleeves to do whatever they're going to ask someone else to do. And in 2004, Don was the only one chosen. He went to Baghdad and became second in command of the Baghdad airport. He was gone for 4.5 months, lifetime, right, for him and for us. But he was busy. We heard about how Toby Keith came through on a USO tour and took a nap on his couch in his office. Ted Nugent signed his gun holster. He met Secretary Rumsfeld on the tarmac. Those are the things we heard about. When Don came home 4.5 months later, he was awarded the Bronze Star. I know you don't earn a Bronze Star by welcoming USO tours. And we hear about it pre-deployment, during deployment, post-deployment. Give them time. Give them space. If they don't talk about it, it's okay. But I'm a human being. I want to fix everything. I gave him time, I gave him space, but he came back different. That gleam in his eye when I first met him at the University of Texas was not there. His fingernails were bitten down to the nubs. Little things that I noticed. He was more reserved than typical. I used to give him a hard time because he took up aromatherapy while he was over there in Iraq, cigar smoking. But I gave him space, but I knew something was wrong, and I tried to talk to him about it. And there were things that he just couldn't verbalize. And it wasn't clearance related. It was just things he didn't want to burden us with, even after he was back. So we called those sacred spaces because there were things I didn't want to tell him about and burden him with, because it all worked out. Our community helped us, and he had his own community in Baghdad. In 2005, we got orders for Carlisle Barracks for Army War College. Now, my dad, being in the Air Force, we had gone to Maxwell for Air War College. And I remember it was a fantastic year for families. And I thought, okay, this will be the year that we reintegrate, that things will have some time. And we enjoyed Carlisle. But we were told our follow-on assignment was at the Pentagon. So we sold our custom home that we built, because back then in the reserve, you could pretty much homestead. We built a home, a custom home, and we sold it because the Air Force had a different plan. We were off to get embedded in new communities. 6 weeks before graduation from Carlisle, the Air Force changed its mind. I know they don't do that very often. They said, no, we need you back in Colorado Springs at Air Force Space Command. We were excited to go back to our community. But when you have the mindset that you are leaving a community and you were going somewhere else, and then to come back after 11 months, that was hard. I likened it to double Dutch jump rope, where you've got the two ropes going and you're tracking so you don't trip. And unfortunately, we tripped. In April of 2008, the doorbell rang. And it was the coroner and 2 officers. Don had taken his life 3 days before he pinned on Colonel. I remember just thinking about, oh, my poor boys, my poor boys. Ryan was 14 at the time and Ben was 12. I made one phone call. And my living room and kitchen were full of people. I remember 14 years later, I remember every single person who was in my home. I don't remember what they said, but they were there. Our community showed up. But the choice that Don had made has everlasting effects on our family. Ben, my youngest, was 12. 8 years later, on his 20th birthday, he was at the University of Arizona in Tucson, and I received this voicemail.
I miss Dad. I miss Dad so much. I can't live without him. I can't. I need him right now. I need him so much. I just need someone right now, Mom. Mommy. I need Dad right now. I can't live without him. It's the worst year of my life. Mommy, I'm not okay. I'm not okay right now, Mom. I really need help. I really need help. I really need answer.
Ben's community came alongside of him that night. Mommy, where are you? His fraternity brothers and his roommate got him the help that he needed. He was on a 72-hour hold. And it was hard living in Colorado Springs, not being able to talk to my baby. You know, research says that family members are more likely to attempt suicide if they have a loved one that completed suicide. Our oldest son, Ryan, this is what I have from him. We are not having technical difficulties. Ryan has been missing for 2,354 days today. September 20th of 2015 was the last time I saw my older son because of a choice. See, Ryan was diagnosed with bipolar after his dad's suicide, a couple years after the suicide. And from what I understand, because I am not a therapist, I don't have letters behind my name. I feel like I'm a SME in overcoming, and I wish God wouldn't trust me so much sometimes. But from what I understand, bipolar typically presents itself in the early to mid-20s. And Ryan was 16 when he was diagnosed, 2 years after his dad's suicide. Ryan had attempted a few times. We don't know where he is. And I pray that he's on this side of heaven. But one day I hope to know. But this is what's left of our family. But what you don't see is the community that backed us every step of the way. Because we got embedded in our community. Whether you're at Edwards or you're Holloman or at Arnold or Eglin, wherever the military or wherever life takes you, you have a community. Rely on them. We were not made to do life alone, and we are on an emotional battlefield, and we have to have wingmen, and we have to have battle buddies. So I can say in my family, suicide was contagious, but what else is contagious? A smile, a kind word. Sometimes that's the only light in someone's life. And even with masks on, you can tell when someone smiles. You can tell when someone smiles on the phone. I know when I don't feel well, I smile. Because even internally, it's contagious. It took a mindset change for me to not feel a victim. Just everything was piling on and piling on. So I want to share with you some acronyms that helped me and my family get through, and I still use them. We live in a world of acronyms, especially in the military, right? So the first one is no. Now, I will caveat this. No means no when it comes to your body. Otherwise, no means next opportunity. Our kids are really good at finding next opportunity, right? They go to dad and they ask dad. Dad says no. Who do they go to next? They go to mom or grandma. Let's learn from our kids and find that next opportunity. Don't take no for an answer. But as leaders on that emotional battlefield, if you have to tell someone no, please spend a little bit of time helping them find the next opportunity. Whether it's assignment-based or someone's asking you to volunteer and the answer's no, have someone else on your mind that may want to fill that volunteer spot. Little things like that. And when you get the answer no, There's something better out there for you. Whether it's relationship-wise, job-wise, financial-wise, there's something better out there for you. No stands for next opportunity. The next one is fly. Appropriate here, right? At AFTC. Stands for first love yourself. Self-care. You've got to take care of yourself first in order to give to others. Fill up your cup, and any overflow is for others. It's boundaries. And the beautiful thing in the Air Force is when you can fly, you can fight and win. When you see our battle cry, if you will, our motto, think about fly, first love yourself. And then fight and win. Integrity first, service before self, excellence in all we do. You've got to fly. You've got to take care of yourself. The next one, PTS, we know that as post-traumatic stress. But I encourage you to think about it as post-traumatic strength. We go through adversities, and that creates perseverance and endurance. And that creates character. And then the byproduct is hope. And because there's hope for tomorrow, there's power in today. But we don't grow if we don't go through adversities. And I'm not talking about comparing your adversities with my adversities. We've all experienced a 10 out of 10 on the pain scale at that very moment, right? We have an understanding of that. Use the lessons that you've learned from life's test, whether they're pop quizzes, well, all of them are pop quizzes, right, usually, or midterms or finals. Learn those lessons, and those will help you grow stronger. And then, because you grow stronger and you take care of yourself, that's when you can help tutor other people through their lessons that they're going through. The next one, fail. I think you understand when I say I failed as a mom and I failed as a spouse. It was my therapist, part of my community, that helped me understand that FAIL stands for first attempt in learning or further attempt in learning. Never final attempt in learning. We're learning every day. Even on that gratitude highway as you drive into town, think about the lessons you've learned. It's okay to fail. Learn from those lessons and keep trying. Don't take no for an answer. The next one is fear. So I didn't talk about our family story for 10 years. The shame, the guilt, and I was fearful that if I splayed open my heart and my soul, that people would throw salt on the wound. No one could make me feel more guilty than I already felt, though. But fear stands for false evidence appearing real. If I asked each of you to think of what you're most fearful of and share it with your partner, I bet we wouldn't have the same answers. We all have different fears. And a lot of them are self-limiting fears. And it takes our community and people that we surround ourselves with to see in us the possibilities that we can't see in ourselves. And I'm not asking you to be fearless. I think there's real benefit to having a little bit of fear. We don't put our hand on a hot stovetop, fear of getting burned, right? I'm not asking you to be fearless as in one word, because to get over our fear, that's when we grow. We get outside of our comfort zones. But I'm asking you to fear less. Think about what you're fearful of, and is it a true fear or is it a false evidence appearing real? And bring someone alongside of you to help you get over that. Get outside your comfort zone. The next one is free. Foster relationships energetically everywhere. So my definition of energetic, being an uber extrovert, is probably different than an introvert's definition of energetic. But whatever your definition of energetic is, the important part is to foster relationships. Again, we don't know what each person is going through in life on that emotional battlefield. And when you foster a relationship, a deep, meaningful friendship, doesn't have to be a room full of people. You don't have to have a whole lot, but just one. Preferably more. Someone that you can open up to. Someone that you trust. But foster those relationships where you can, because your sphere of influence in your community gets bigger when you foster a relationship. And it may not be that you can help the person that you're meeting or fostering that relationship with, but people within those spheres of influence. And it's wonderful when you can help people that way and help strangers. There's something cathartic about it. Hope. Another 4-letter word, but it's a good 4-letter word. For us at the time, it stood for hold on, pain eases. Some people say the E stands for ends. Hold on, pain ends. I think you'll understand why my pain won't end, even if I find my son. But it does ease. There's another definition of hope that can help ease that pain. And it's help one person every day. When you can get outside of your circumstances and help someone else, it helps your pain ease. But I want to encourage you, just like Fly, that one person you may need to help is yourself. And it's okay, and it's not selfish. It's important. And bring people that you trust and that you love, that you know won't throw salt in your wound, won't pass judgment, but be curious. They won't pass judgment, but they will be curious because they want to help you. It's amazing when you're in pain to get outside your comfort zone and help someone else. So these are the people that really ease my pain. My husband, Sean, we met on Match.com. It works, people. And I'm an Air Force recruiter. He was Navy when I met him, and I said, I don't understand your acronyms. What's a GDUNC? Come on over to the Air Force. And he did. He's in the Air Force Reserve at Peterson Space Force Base. He was a bachelor when I met him. My mom was really worried. What's wrong with him? He said he was waiting his whole life for me. And he's been such a great role model for my boys. And so supportive of me as I travel and tell our family story. I don't know of many spouses who can live in the shadow of a previous life. And Sean does. And I'm so thankful for him. And this is my son, Ben, the voicemail. So Ben works at the 419th here at Edwards. He's a government employee, 26 years old, lives in Lancaster. It took him 2 years to get a clearance because we made sure he was very honest on his equip about his 72-hour holds. But I got to tell you, this kid is resilient. We all have a tough time still sometimes. You know, those milestones. He helps my pain ease. And I hope I can say that I help his pain ease too. And I'm so thankful for him. So what did our community do for us? Postvention, right? Because things happen. I know Edwards here, you've had a lot of things happen. Some tragedies. And what did our community do for us? One, they showed up. Remember all those people in my living room, in my kitchen? Only one person do I remember what she said. But most of them just showed up. One was cleaning the dishes in the dishwasher, and another one was transferring laundry from the washing machine to the dryer as we were grieving. But they were there for us. And then they did something. This says do something, not say something, right? I think as human beings, we want to make things better. It's just in our nature. But the one thing that I remember someone said was, she said, he's in a better place. I know what she meant. Why was in a better place at home with his kids? I had another friend that came up and said, Kristen, I don't have the words for you, but I'm here. How easy is that, right? It's being vulnerable, saying, I don't know how to make things better for you, and I don't think I can, but I'm here. My best friend and her 2 boys were my boy's best friend. She took her kids out of school for 3 days, and they lived with us, and she slept on Dawn's side of the bed so it wouldn't be empty. She did something. My hairdresser came and cut the boys' hair before the funeral. A friend of mine showed up on my doorstep. A friend from Carlisle, from Army War College. They lived in Florida. She didn't call. She didn't ask. She just showed up and stayed with us for a week. It was fabulous. Because I had that veil of grief. But they did something. And then they were intentional. Tell you the first 30 to 45 days, you have casseroles coming out of your ears. You're borrowing your neighbors' freezers, and it's fantastic. And we loved it. We had people calling. We had people writing cards. We had people texting. But after about 45 days, everything stops. But we're still in the grieving process. So I encourage you, when you have a friend that's going through a crisis or has gone through an adversity like that, keep in touch with them. Send them texts every once in a while, even randomly on your calendar, on your phone. Just say, text Joe. Text Marianne. Just send a text that says, hey, I'm thinking of you. It'll make you feel wonderful, and I guarantee you it will make them just shine. No matter what's going on in life. But continue that. Be intentional. And then use your resources. Every installation has resources. Every city has resources. Know what your resources are. And use those resources for yourself when you're in crisis or when someone else that you care about is in crisis. So I have slides up here on some national, these are some national resources available. The National Suicide Prevention Hotline. It's a 10-digit number. They even have texting. Ben would rather not call on the phone. He'd rather text any day of the week. But they have a text line. So 988 will be the new National Suicide Prevention Hotline. It's coming in July of 2022. I started working on it in 2017. Didn't take no for an answer. Found that next opportunity. And in 2020, it passed the House, the Senate, and was signed as an executive order. 988 will be transferred to the 1-800 number for the National Suicide Hotline. We call 911 when we have a medical emergency. We'll be able to dial 988. And yesterday, the chaplain said that he had tried it, and I believe here in Lancaster area, it's already active. You can still call the 10-digit number, but I recommend that you put 988 and the 10-digit number in your phones. Again, it's not just for you when you're in crisis. They're there to help you. You can call them and say, I'm calling for a friend, and mean it. Now, this 10-digit number and 988 will also be the veteran crisis line and the military crisis line. Right now, it's this 1-800 number. But you dial 1 to reach someone who has an understanding of our culture, of being in the military. This is an example of not taking no for an answer and breaking those barriers to get care. And then the National Alliance on Mental Health, NAMI, has a text line. They're there. That's what they're there for. So, and there are so many others. 211. Most states have 211 where you can call for, where's the closest food bank? You need financial resources. It's not just suicide, right? It's not just for that ideation. But there are other resources available. So these are resources on base. Even if you're at a joint base that's run by the Navy, they have something like Airmen and Family Readiness Center. It's just that translation of acronyms and of resources available. Behavioral health, I want to foot stomp the chaplains. They are trained. They have the tools that you need, that we all need. They are 100% confidential. They are the only ones 100% confidential. And they are available, and you don't have to step foot at the base chapel on Saturday nights or Sundays or any time. They are there for you. Family advocacy, MFLACs. We've got youth and adult MFLACs, the community support coordinators, and the violence prevention integrators. Military One Source. They have so many resources. I really encourage you to go and investigate. We sent a resume, a spouse's resume, and English was her second language, and they translate. She was able to give them her resume in Mandarin, and they were able to translate it. And it was a very good translation. They have so many resources available, but even counseling. They'll give you a year of counseling for free. Blue Star Families, we've got the Air Force Resilience page and the Spouse Resilience Toolkit, the AF Connect app. We've got a lot of apps. AMC is now doing virtual reality suicide prevention and SAPR. And then Give an Hour is a great resource. You type in your zip code, and it will give you a list of providers who are donating 1 hour for a week, for a year, for counseling. Find out what your resources are when you're in a good place. Put them in your phone. Put them where they're accessible so you can be a resource for people in your community. So resources. Ben, in high school, he was an athlete. His counselor asked him, Ben, you're going off to college. You didn't get a sports scholarship. What are you going to do? Because he deals with anxiety and depression. And he didn't know. So his counselor recommended that he take up a hobby. The girl he liked at the time was starting a crochet club before school. He joined the crochet club. When he went off to college, he became a closet crocheter because he didn't want his fraternity brothers and all to know he was crocheted. But it really helped his anxiety and depression. Last semester, aerospace engineering, 20 credit hours, waiting for his clearance, looking for a job. He calls me. I told you he doesn't call much. He calls me, and he says, Mom, I've gone viral. I said, honey, just go to urgent care. It's okay. They'll take care of you. Mom, I've gone viral on Twitter and Instagram. I said, do I even want to know why you went viral? Well, the girlfriend he had at the time, he had crocheted a halter top for her. And she broke up with him before he could gift it to her. So he put the halter top on, and he snapped a picture and put it on Twitter and Instagram to sell for $45. He was calling me because he had 500 orders for halter tops while he was taking 20 hours of aerospace engineering. He goes, Mom, what do I do? This is the young woman who bought the halter. She wore it best, I will admit. So we talked about it. He taught his fraternity brothers how to brochet, words matter, and they fulfilled the orders. So they had money in their pocket, but more importantly, he used his resource of a hobby, and he taught them the resource. So now they could crochet and relieve their anxiety and depression. So sometimes your resources don't look like what was necessarily on the previous slides, right? Think about those resources that you use that you can teach others. So we have over 1,500 national days, right? National Margarita Day was on 2/2/2/2 on the 22nd of February. Today is Fat Tuesday and National Pancake Day. There are a number of other days that, we use to celebrate. It's kind of a mindset change. Every day we should celebrate, right? What we don't have of those 1,500 days is a day for survivors, a day to celebrate our resilience, because we've all gone through tests in life. We are all on that emotional battlefield, and we all have wingmen that are willing and able to let us borrow their courage, to let us borrow hope. Hold on, pain eases, and help one person every day. Not taking no for an answer, I have created National Resilience Day, and it's this Friday, March 4th. We march forth and conquer our disappointments and our insecurities and our fears, and we conquer those. We march forth and conquer. More importantly, we do it together on that emotional battlefield. Life is a tough teacher. We get the test first, and then we learn the lesson. What lessons have you learned that you can help your community, whether it's one person, a handful of people, or a big sphere of influence, to come together and to march forth and conquer and be the best human beings we can be? So I want to be a resource for you all. This is my contact information. Again, I'm not a licensed therapist. I know resources. I know people. I want to be your emotional support human without the vest that says do not pet. If I can help you in any way, please consider me a resource, because I want to march forth and conquer with you. Thank you. If you have any questions, let me know. We've got the text line too.
Thank you, Kristen, for this awesome presentation. Like I said, I learn something every time I see it. One of the things I think we often struggle with, especially whether you're whether you're a supervisor, a senior leader, a spouse, or a parent, is how do we enable ourselves to ask those tough questions? Are you okay? Are you going to hurt yourself? Are you thinking about suicide? Do you have some tips on how we can think about those things?
Yeah, we call them tough conversations, right? I think they're just untrained conversations. We need to practice even looking in the mirror or finding that person that we trust and practicing looking in their eyes and saying, are you thinking of suicide? And we actually have to use the word. Not necessarily are you thinking of hurting yourself. That can open the door. That can be a little step. And trusting your gut. How many times have you had this feeling, this intuition that you're supposed to do something and you don't do it, and then you're going, I should have trusted my gut on that, right? If you go up to someone and say, hey, you just don't seem like yourself lately. We all have bad days. Even a Tigger has Eeyore days, and it extends. But when it extends, going up and saying, hey, I've noticed. I see you, and I've noticed. Is everything okay? What can I do to help you? And if they say fine, fine is another acronym, feelings inside not expressed a lot of the time. A lot of the time. But if your gut tells you that something's off, just be there. Go up and say, hey, I've noticed, or is everything okay? And if they have that trust with you, that credibility, because you're embedded in their community, that can open the door to a lot. And then when your gut says things are really bad, and as they're talking, asking that question, are you thinking of suicide? Research says that if you ask someone about suicide, it does not put it in their head. What it does is it shows them that you care and that you've noticed. So sometimes it's baby steps, but we've got to practice. And it's uncomfortable, that fear, but get outside that comfort zone, because you may not only save a life, but a family, save a community in the process. So, do we have any questions on the in text line? No? Okay, good. Well, and that's, again, after that voicemail, I don't turn off my cell phone. My cell phone's always on. I go through a lot of phones because the batteries go out. But if I can be a resource for you, ask. Let me know. Good. Thank you. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it. Thanks.